Meredith, good job on your narrative essay. I just want to go through, just found a couple of things I want to point out. Good imagination. It's on the top of the second page. We have here, hey guys, grab your fishing poles and whatever else y'all need. We have got plans this Friday. And right here, whenever, and you probably know this, it's probably just, I don't know, when we write, we don't always catch all our mistakes, but you probably know that, let me go ahead and get where I can mark on this. You probably know that right there, that's a comma splice where you've tried to join two sentences with a comma. You can tell because you have a subject, anytime we have a subject, noun, and verb, and we try and join it together with the comma, that's a comma splice. So, hey guys, grab your fishing poles and whatever else y'all need. We have got plans this Friday. And so here's your verb, and here's your subject noun. And over here we've got, well, it's a subject pronoun, and we have a helping verb and a verb. But we have subject noun and verbs on both sides. Easy way to fix it is just put a semicolon instead. And again, that's only your one time you did that, so it may be you just didn't catch that one when you were proofing yourself. The next one was down a couple paragraphs here after 3 hours. And again, I think you just didn't catch this one because you did this correct in the rest of your paper. You have Jason asked somberly. A split second after Jason spoke, Henry felt a tempting tug at the end of the pole. And so now we've switched our characters. And so anytime we switch who's speaking, we start a new paragraph. Guys, I think I've got something healed with Glee. So here we have Jason, and then we have Henry. And anytime we do a character change in dialogue, we start a new paragraph. Last one, they began walk home, and I'm thinking you probably meant walking home. They began walking home. Those were the only three little things. Oh, one more. This word. I'm not asking your permission, Pastor. Consider it a, I don't know. Could be a gift. Could be tithe. Could be that he's trying to say fish and tithe together in a unique word. I'm not sure what you're trying to do there. So if you were trying to use a unique word and you've got fifth, so you're combining fish and tithe, maybe, I'm not sure. But if you are trying to use it as a unique word, you need to put quotes around it. You need to put quotes around it if it is a unique word. Oh, and you already have quotes, so we would use the single quotes in here. If it's just a misspelling, that's fine too. On your grade, I only did 1 point down. And so you did a good job. I'm very impressed. Good imagination. And jumping into narrative writing can be hard after you've been doing a lot of essay writing. And we're going to continue narrative writing, but next week we're going to do a pre-writing exercise, and we're going to get a little bit more complex. We're going to do 3 pictures. And what those 3 pictures are going to represent are 3 chapters. Here's our pictures. These are your pictures. And they're going to represent 3 chapters or 3 problems. So let me kind of go over what a good story looks like. And this is going to be a very short story, but you'll be able to get this in. A good story has a rising conflict and looks like this. And we're going to have 3 pictures. And with those 3 pictures, you're going to create 3 obstacles for your main character. And so this will be obstacle 1 that you're going to pull out of that first picture. This is going to be obstacle 2. And this is going to be obstacle 3. And right here is where you're going to present a solution to those obstacles. It's our climax. It's our turning point. Your teachers may have called it any of those. Usually they probably call it the climax or turning point. And after you have this scene happen, the rest of the story is just kind of tying up loose ends. And so I like to put little bow ties. So it's just tying up the loose ends. So here we have our character. And at the beginning, we have the way things were, his regular life. And what's going to happen to our character is you're going to throw them into turmoil, and they're going to end up having a series of 3 obstacles to overcome. And then you're going to present a solution, and then you're going to tie up any loose ends for them. A couple of things about our character. We want our character to have learned something by the end. So be thinking about that. And in every book you've read or every movie that you watched that you liked, the character learned something and was better off at the end than he was at the beginning. And if you ever went to a movie and you hated it and you came out and you go, I hated that movie, it's because your character didn't learn anything and he didn't achieve his story goal. And so as you're doing this, this character has his goal, and that's our story goal. And you're going to be working on that. So your pre-writing is you're going to develop your obstacles, you're going to develop your character, your story goal, and this isn't part of your pre-writing, but you can start thinking about this. We'll probably work on this about 3 weeks. So the first week I want you to kind of give me an outline, answer some questions, fill in some blanks, be thinking about your character and what you're going to have that character overcome. And then the second week we're going to do a draft, and I'm going to see if you've answered all the questions and if you have all your obstacles in place, and give you some suggestions, and then we'll do the final. So hopefully the second week you'll have a pretty good idea of where you're going with your story. And this is what fiction writers do. They take a character and they create some obstacles for the character. The character has an overall goal for the story, and they create these obstacles, and the obstacles get worse and worse until you think your character cannot take any more, and then suddenly there's a solution. And hopefully the character comes out and he's learned something. Hopefully he's better off. If he's not better off, he has a better understanding of life. So your story goal is a little bit different than what he's learned, but it is something that you have to consider as you create your obstacles. So let's say your character, and it's best to write about somebody that you know about or you've been that age. So let's say your character is a 10-year-old girl, and you've been 10, so that you can write about what it's like to be 10. And you can even pull from stuff from your own life. You're going to use these characters as your framework though. So let's just say, let me pull up my pictures here. Let's just say the 10-year-old girl, let's say she lives out on a farm, and her brother have been learning how to hunt with their father. Okay. And so the first thing that's going to happen is maybe her and her brother go out in the woods without their father, without permission, because they think they know what they're doing, and end up getting lost. And maybe they end up finding a herd of wild horses that they start following, but in the meantime, the horses end up being, let's see, I'm trying to think, I'm thinking I always do these stories different every time. Say the horses end up being, I don't know, wild mustangs that are not supposed to be herded up and taken to slaughter, and yet this pair uncovers this, and they uncover a group of poachers or people who are illegally taking these wild mustangs off the land. So these poachers find out about the kids, and they're out to get the kids because they're going to lose millions of dollars or whatever. So the kids are lost. They are under the radar are some poachers who are out to get them. And the fire, so this will be our third obstacle. And we have these kids lost, being pursued by poachers, and maybe they come across a house out in the middle of the woods. Or they come across this campfire out in the middle of the woods, and they find a family camping. And let's say the family camping, oh, we might could make the family camping their rescue too. But we've got to create an obstacle through this picture. And maybe the temperatures dropped significantly. And so they ended up stealing some firewood and had made this fire for themselves, and it was through the campfire and the smoke that they were rescued. So here they are, they're out in the middle of nowhere, they're lost, they've got poachers after them. They build this fire, which probably isn't a good idea. You'll have to think through all the details because then the poachers could find the fire. And so when you're working on your story, you're also going to think of all of these things that could or could not happen. But let's just say that they do build the fire because the temperatures have dropped down so low that they could freeze to death, and they have to risk being found by the poachers. But what ends up happening, and the poachers are on their tail, are heading towards the fire because the poachers saw the fire. But luckily also the people who were looking for them saw the fire and found them before the poachers, and the poachers get taken into custody, and we'll have a good ending. So you're going to use your pictures, and don't use that story. I mean, and that was just really off the top of my head. And you're going to think of whatever it reminds you of. So you'll have your own experiences to draw on. And I'm going to give you a handout. Let's see if I can get it up here. And the handout has all the questions you're going to ask about your pictures to get started with your pre-writing. And the first one is the central fact. And this is the fact of the story. It's an actual fact. Don't use your imagination. Just look at the picture. And the central fact is someone is leaning up against a bale of hay to steady a gun. It's a fact. And so you come up with your central fact, and that you're going to use that information in your story. And then you answer these questions, which you did with your one picture narrative. And you do it for all three pictures. Now some of them's going to have the same who, but you might bring in a new who. Like in the second pictures, say the poachers, we will bring in a new who. And some of them might have the previous picture before. But go ahead and work through that process. And with these three pictures, I don't care what order you choose to put them in. If this is how it starts with the campfire, that's fine. You get to choose the order. Let me get back to my pre-writing sheet. So you answer your questions, and this is just to help you start developing your story. And then we have our 3 O's about our picture 1. What is our objective? So this is going to be their goal. So the kids go out hunting. Why did they go out hunting in the first picture? They went out hunting because they wanted to show their dad that they could do it. They wanted to surprise him. I don't know. And then their obstacle is they get lost. And so then what is their outcome? Their outcome is it starts getting night and colder. So you're going to have to lead into the next picture. So the objective in the next picture, their objective was to follow those horses and hopefully come across a ranch or a farm. But the obstacle was they found out these horses were actually being pursued by people who were poaching wild mustangs. Sorry about that. I have no idea why that keeps popping up. And then the outcome is the kids end up being pursued. So you're going to think about an obstacle, an objective, an obstacle, and an outcome. So their whole story goal, oh, and then the endings, but let me just go back here to your whole story goal here. When you're talking about, let's say, the scenario about the kids getting lost, their story goal maybe is to prove to their dad that they're responsible. And they end up looking very irresponsible. But in the end, they are responsible because they ended up aiding in their own rescue. And what maybe they could learn is maybe they learned that they need to pay more attention to their dad, or maybe their dad learns that they are responsible, or maybe the kids learn that not all people are good. So they can learn whatever you choose for your characters to learn. And it's a tricky process. I've written a fiction book and I proofread for fiction authors, and it always amazes me the storylines and the story goals they come up with. And it's a lot of fun to use your imagination and just you get to create the story. So I hope you'll find this fun. And then your endings. So with 3 pictures, we're going to have 3 chapters. And a chapter changes anytime we change characters, point of view, or we change locations, which that's what we're doing with our pictures. You're pretty much changing the location. Or it becomes day or night, and that's a good way to end a chapter also. So you're going to come up with an ending. And endings, right here, they usually, a good ending, and you'll just have to work on this, and this might be something we fine-tune after you do your draft. So pre-writing this week, get your draft, and then maybe we can work on these endings, because this is the tricky part. And this is actually an editing part of when we're working with a nonfiction writer. You have to have an ending that makes the reader want to read the next chapter. And so you end it at the moment of a major decision, or just as a terrible thing is about to happen. Or you can even suggest that a terrible thing is going to happen. You can end it with a display of strong emotion or raise a question with no immediate answer. So let's go back to our pictures. And how could we end this one? We could end it just as something terrible is about to happen. Let's say the kids have been pursued by the poachers and they have went over a cliff that the poachers aren't able to follow them. And so now they have to go down into a ravine that's even colder than where they were up. And they at the bottom of the ravine there's a stream, so they end up getting wet and the temperatures are dropping, and so they are freezing, they are wet, they have somehow eluded the poachers, but maybe the little girl starts crying because she is so cold, and her brother puts his arm around her and he says, you know, it's going to be okay, we're going to get out of this. And so that could be how you end that. And then you'll have to start the next chapter. So we don't know if they're going to get out of it. Or maybe he doesn't say we're going to get out of this. Maybe he just holds her close and just he's shivering too. And so you could say a terrible thing is about to happen. So here's your pre-writing. And this right here, the endings, I kind of think those will be the hardest part. They always are for me. Your pre-writing, you have a central fact. You're going to answer these questions, and that kind of gets you in your thinking mode. And then, what is your story objective? What is the obstacle? What is your outcome? And let's say they're cold, and the outcome is that they are going to build a fire, or the outcome is they're going to have to huddle up and put leaves on them or whatever. So next week, pre-writing, what I'll do is I'll attach these to your Juno doc, and you'll be able to download both the pictures and the pre-writing exercise. You can probably fill this in, but I think you're going to need more room, so just go ahead and give me, on a Word document like you did before, answer these questions. And so that's a real simplistic view of how you start getting into writing some fiction and some narrations. And hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. I always enjoy fiction writing because I can come up with wild stories. And if you have any questions, you can text me or call me or email me or talk to me at Grace. And I'm also going to send you a narrative for you to peer review. So you've got a peer review to do, and what I want you to do in your peer review is just to see if the questions were answered. And this is a peer review of a one picture, the same picture you saw. It's a different story, and see if all of the questions were answered. And I will send you some more information on that. So you're going to have 2 assignments, one the pre-writing and 2 a peer review. This is another student, and you're going to give the feedback to me. He's not going to see it, so that you don't have to worry about hurting his feelings. That is the end of the video.